Hi everybody, welcome to Checkpoint Technology Software Quality and Beer. I am here with my cohort in crime, Matt Kubal. Hey Matt, how are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Good. So hey, before we get started and dive into it, I want to thank Thirsty Buffalo here in Odessa, Florida for letting us use this really cool brewery to record our podcast. And Matt, you notice anything new?
You have eyes? You can see.
I can see, no glasses.
Oh, yeah.
That is correct. And that is because everybody, I'm not ashamed of it, I'm old. And, I was sitting around one day and I said, geez, what can I do next week? I think I'll have cataract surgery.
Yeah.
So, normal thing to do when you're my age.
Uh-huh.
And they fix an astigmatism, but I now have 20/20 vision. But, being the kind of guy I am, during the anesthesia, they keep you awake, just to let you know, so that you can follow commands like look up, look left, and everything. Well, I started thinking about how sometimes testers can get cataracts, and I'm actually going to write a blog about it. But that's what I wanted to talk about. Just some of the different things where, when you have a test suite or a test library, whatever you may call it, a pipeline. One of the things that amazes me is a lot of times organizations don't look it over. So after a while, everything starts to become hazy or fuzzy. The tests look the same. There's nothing new. They stop producing the same results. Have you ever seen this?
You mean they stop producing meaningful results?
Yeah, meaningful results.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's there's a lot of pressure to make everything pass.
Yeah.
A lot of that, right? Like those ththings all passed in the past. I don't need to spend any time looking at it. I'll just flip through these real quick and not worry about it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a number of years ago, an associate and I went into an organization up in Louisiana near New Orleans, and we were consulting for them for about 2 weeks, and they asked us to review their test library. And we started off, and they had about approximately 1,700 tests. When we left, they had about 795.
Wow.
And that's because a lot of the tests were obsolete and this was the big one, redundant.
Yeah. Did they not have a test management solution of any sort?
They did.
Okay.
They did. But even with the test management solution, people need to have a process. So one of the things I try to teach is that, before, when you're given a new requirement, don't automatically dive in and create a brand new test case. Instead, review the ones you already have to see if maybe they, as they are, will validate that new requirement, or with a little bit of revision.
Yeah.
And this was something they didn't do. Just everybody, they get a new requirement, or maybe it wasn't even a new requirement, but it would be handed off from Joe over to, Benny, and Benny would say, I'm just going to create a new test case, instead of checking what was already in there.
Like the requirement had been updated?
Yeah.
And so they just generate something new and nobody goes and and fixes the backlog.
Exactly. So, and what I'm talking about is true for the most part, slight variations, whether it's manual testing or automated testing. But I wanted to chat about this. I'm hoping you all find it beneficial. But, one of the things that's just absolutely critical is that you review your test cases. One of the easy things that you can do is you've got a test team, just occasionally reassign your test cases to different testers.
Yeah. That is the benefit of also cross-training people on things. Not just new eyes for looking for defects, but also you're not reliant on a single person being there to know this one system.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits of reassigning it. But when you reassign them, especially if they're automated, don't say, all right, Mary, instead of you executing this test case, we're now going to have Jim execute this test case. Have them review the test cases to find out is there anything in that test case that should be added? Is there anything that's obsolete? Is it still a meaningful test case?
Yeah. Does it cover the requirement? There's a lot of that.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Somebody can
Absolutely.
develop a test that doesn't actually test all of a requirement, maybe, or
Right.
doesn't actually meet the needs of the requirement.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So, reassigning the test cases to different testers, mixing them up a bit, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Another thing that you should be periodically be doing, and organizations, you don't have to do it to your entire test suite or test library. Just maybe, every month have an objective of reviewing or having your testers review at least 25% of them. Next month, a different 25%, and so on. But review them and revise accordingly. So some things you can do is switch up the order of test execution.
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do is just change up the test data. A lot of times that alone, you'll end up finding and discovering different defects or issues. Or take the time to revise the test cases themselves. So those are some things that you can do.
Okay. You mentioned automation, so I've got a few here as well.
Yeah.
So I've found that, in my opinion, people develop automation tests, and they're very happy path, narrowly tailored to fit the exact requirement that they're testing. And anything that can go wrong along that path has been accounted for. Like, I need to change this drop down because it needs to be in this state for my test to go through, right? So very linear, happy path, and what happens is that those always pass, right? And so maybe when you first develop your suite of automation tests, you're finding a decent number of defects, but as time goes on, and that functionality becomes just a normal part of the application that's not being touched regularly or redeveloped regularly, you find fewer and fewer defects there. And so really where you find a lot of your defects is in manual testing, and specifically kind of the exploratory part of manual testing, where you might be running a test that is a specific test, but you see something else along the way that doesn't look quite right. It might not be specifically exploratory testing you're doing, but the need for manual testing is always there. So people trying to push to get 100% automation, I think what you'll end up doing is finding a lot fewer defects that are big problems that a manual tester would see.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, so that's a huge blind spot, is pushing for automation, too much automation.
Yeah, because I'm a huge proponent of exploratory testing. And you're right, with manual testing, even if you're not saying, all right, I'm going to do some exploratory testing, you're there executing your test, and then all of a sudden, especially experienced testers will say, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder what'll happen if I do this.
Yeah.
And they'll try doing something different. And absolutely. So that's one of the big benefits of manual testing.
Yeah.
But then as far as just keeping your test library, clean or different, absolutely, switch it up. And then, you make me realize too, if you have all these automated tests, your automated solution isn't going to think outside the box. You got to remember it's only going to do what you programmed it to do.
Yep.
So maybe once in a while, take some of those automated tests and execute them manually. That's another great practice to get into.
Sure. Yeah. I had another one here. The test environment can be a blind spot.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
there's a lot of limitations, inside your organization on how many resources your test environment can have. What outside systems can be linked up. People stub out a lot of stuff. So there are lots of blind spots there. Like the thing that always fails in your test environment because something isn't configured properly, and it can't be configured properly because you only have one of those things you can link up to, and that's in production. Well, you can never get to test it. And so
right.
Yeah, it fails every time you try to run a test against it, but you never actually test it in production. So you could easily, have a bug there that goes to production because you never test it.
Yeah.
And that one's kind of obvious. Less obvious is maybe the performance related to that. So you have limited resources. If you've got 2 testers in a system, they're never going to experience those performance issues that you're going to experience at scale.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing performance testing, or you can't and you don't have the resources, well, that's definitely a blind spot. Like you're gonna push your code to prod and just cross your fingers that you don't have a performance issue.
Yeah,
that happens all the time.
Yeah, very true. And I love the one, I love where you're talking about environment, because that is something, I think architects think about it, but testers don't think about it.
Yeah.
And you bring to mind an issue I remember many years ago. I was doing some consulting for a very large government agency, and there was a process A, process B. They'd run B would run right after A, and there was a problem the testers were having in that process B kept failing because it wasn't finding data in a reference table provided by process A. But every time we looked, the data was there. So we kept thinking, all right, there's a problem with process B. It wasn't finding the data. Finally, when we slowed things down, we found that the environment was configured incorrectly so that process A, the database basically wasn't committing the value, the data that process A had entered quickly enough.
Yeah.
So process B, again, this is during execution time, wasn't finding it.
Right.
But that was all because of the environment.
Right. Something that would have worked in production failed in non-prod environment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of times, it's interesting to ask testers, well, is your test environment a duplicate of prod? Is it a subset of prod? A lot of times they really don't know.
Yeah.
So, that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. Most of the time the answer is no.
Right, exactly.
Not even close a lot of times.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Anything else you can think of?
I've got down here the pressure to have everything pass, and I think I mentioned that earlier, but it can be a real blind spot, with, I've seen situations where somebody will find a severe defect and somebody will say, well, we're going to production in 2 days. We're going live in 2 days, so you can't log that now, or if you're going to log that, you need to log it as less severe.
Right.
So that's clearly a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're serious about your testing, there needs to be a situation where you can have a no-go because of a defect you find. If the culture is nobody ever causes a no-go on the testing side, then what are you doing, right? Like, are you serious about it?
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, we've covered a lot of different things you can do. For the most part, low level of effort. A lot of the great benefits. The cross-training one I loved. Refamiliarizes your testers with test cases. Minimizes redundancy, and that saves on development time, maintenance time. So we hope you all found this very informative. Real quick, I'm drinking Trailmaker. I see you're drinking West Coast IPA NA, which looks delicious.
Best Day Brewing.
Yeah. I want to thank Mike and Aaron at Thirsty Buffalo again. I want to thank all of you for joining us. So until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
All right.